was like, oh, that's like my go-to like bullshit fancy sounding quote.
Okay, can you guys see?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's see how we go. Okay, so this week we read Professor Wendy Brown and we looked at chapter 3 of her book States of Injury, which she wrote in 1995. So here's just some of my personal thoughts on the reading. As we discussed before, I found her writing really challenging to comprehend, and I'm glad that you guys did too, because I don't know what's going on here. But in general, I really did appreciate her perspective on identity politics, and it was really clear that she was not a liberal democratic thinker, and she was very critical of the way that identity is injected into politics today, especially in the United States. And she generally held the belief that liberalism as unable to keep its promises. So here's Wendy. So this is just what I gathered her position on identity politics was. Brown wrote that identity is unraveling metaphysically, culturally, geopolitically, and historically as rapidly as it is being produced. She believed that identity politics tends to reproach power and freedom rather than practice it, and views it as having limited usefulness. She wrote, I consider politicized identity as both a production and contestation of the political terms of liberalism, that together might be taken as constitutive to the contemporary North American political condition. She also wrote about the enormous impact that history plays in shaping one's personal political identity as well. So Brown claimed that the chapter explored the ways in which aspects of politicized identity are carried out within the American political system. And she made a point that this is not an essay about the general accomplishments of identity politics, nor is it a critique of identity politics, but she leaned more towards the critique. And then she posed these two questions which I found really difficult to comprehend, but I'll just read them out and maybe we could talk about them in the questions. So she said, first, given the subjectivizing conditions of identity production in a late modern capitalist, liberal and bureaucratic disciplinary social order, how can reiteration of these conditions be turned away? And the second question that she asked is, secondly, she claimed that given the wide interest of polarized identity in achieving political recognition, what are the logics of pain in the subject formation processes of late modern politics that might contain or subvert this aim? One concept that I did sort of understand was the I versus we argument, and she was saying that identity politics forces us to think from our own point of view, and individuals question how their personal groups will be affected rather than the greater community. And yeah, it has this major focus on I over we, and this is unsustainable in the long run. It's extremely self-orientated, which is inherited to the core idea of liberalism, which she was against. And this causes resentment between people of different identities, and it is extremely divisive. And that idea of resentment is throughout her writing. So yeah, here is identity politics leads to resentment, which was inspired by Nietzsche's arguments. And she wrote that it leads to three key things, which is the first, it produces an effect that overwhelms the hurt. Secondly, it produces a culprit responsible for the hurt. Thirdly, it produces a site of revenge to displace the hurt. And according to Brown, capitalism enhances and accelerates resentment. And it's this combination of globalization, capitalism, and bureaucratic apparatuses that cause individuals to feel powerless over their fate and the direction of their own life. And then she wrote, liberalism contains from the inception of a generalized incitement to what Nietzsche's term resentment, the moralizing revenge of the powerless, the triumph of the weak over the weak. And then this resentment leads to a tension between balancing freedom and equality, because if you favor freedom, she says, then you're letting down equality, and so there'll be resentment. It's inevitable. So she wrote that a strong commitment to freedom vitiates the fulfillment of the equality promise and breeds resentment expressed as welfare state liberalism, but also a strong commitment to equality requiring heavy state intervention and economic redistribution breeds resentment expressed as neoconservative anti-statism. Yeah. So then her solutions. What I gathered is that she strived for a major political change and a just general greater collective action. And I was quite impressed that this was published in 1995 and her perspectives on identity politics, she was like remarkably ahead of her time, and it's really relevant to politics in the United States today. It's this idea of shifting away from self-interest, which is inherent to liberalism, towards this more collective action, and not seeing identity as fixed because that is restrictive. Yeah, and replacing the I am for I want this for all of us. So, yeah.
That was really good. I think that's cleared up a lot of questions I had about this. Yeah. Yeah.
I had a hard read.
Yeah. I guess to jump straight into it, I guess a question for number 2 could be, if Brown sort of thinks that, you know, self-interest isn't really a great way to sort of run society, or for people to sort of value their priorities, you know, do people need to vote? You know, do people need to sort of participate in a democracy, given that that's sort of the way we express our self-interest, by voting? So to put it in a question, I guess, if self-interest is, I don't know, we can clean up the wording. If self-interest isn't the way that we should revolve society around, is democracy necessarily necessary? You know, if people are making decisions with the rest of society already in mind, do we need to put things to a vote? You know, I don't know.
So you're saying it should be more of like a dictator?
I don't really know.
Democracy kind of, I'm not saying that this isn't that.
Did I just drop out, guys, or no?
I think your screen just
The
stopped
screen.
sharing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it still sharing the screen?
No.
Okay, that was very weird. It just collapsed. Okay, is that sharing?
You can see the reading.
Oh, the reading?
Have you got it on a different screen?
You're sharing like the wrong window on your screen.
Yeah, do you swipe or something?
I am swiping.
I don't know.
Am I frozen? This is so weird. Sorry, guys. Well,
No, it's okay.
we don't. Oh, the mouse is moving.
Yeah.
I think you might have clicked a different window when you start sharing the screen, I think.
Okay.
To be honest, I didn't make it through the entire reading. But
Yeah.
was she rooting for assimilation?
Yeah.
Is that the whole meaning of it?
Gosh.
That's what I was about to say. It's kind of, it's like she's almost kind of gone in a circle between like being like, obviously being like, oh, these individual identities are important, but like also we need to focus on the we, but like can't try to say that at the same time. It's like, how would she's like, oh, the problem is liberalism's focused on the self, and then that's kind of creating all these selfish things, and then also creating the problems faced by people in these groups, so then you need to come together. But I just don't see how that then suddenly doesn't end up in the same situation where you have all these groups that are kind of being, it kind of leads back to almost like how Brian was saying, like, well, would you even need democracy then if everyone is actually like just doing what was best for everyone? And I guess that's my problem with the thing. I feel like she never really addresses like kind of the core problem of if these things occur and you can't just have everyone come together and have a good outcome suddenly. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like I feel like she wants to end up at this point of being like, we just need like more collectivism, but like without acknowledging that some of the core problems that were issues within the liberal system wouldn't just disappear in a collectivist group.
Yeah, I think you probably get rid of some of the issues that come with like a sort of egoist model, but you'd give birth to a whole range of other issues. Like, one, it's not really realistic to expect people in society to always not behave in their self-interest. Like that's just human nature. I don't know.
It seemed like she was kind of saying, and from the lecturer as well, that like people who've been oppressed should just forget history and then move on. Like, was that the idea or did I get that wrong?
I haven't watched the lecture.
Because of the resentment thing, how she was saying that it's like they're resentful because, well, didn't she say something about how it originated from class, but it's not about that anymore. But people were resentful of people who like were like technically kind of above them in society. So she was saying that they should not do that. And then
I guess, yeah, I think it kind of relates back to like Nietzsche. I always forget which one's the actual way. It's Nietzsche is the correct one. I think it's kind of coming from like the slave morality perspective, kind of like the idea that if you form your identity in response to like the master or like the other, like if they're the ones that form your identity, so you're like, oh, I'm the opposite of that, they've still formed your identity. So I think some of the idea in that is not necessarily to forget history, but more like you need to move past you need to move past the formation of your identity based on like these historical factors, because those historical factors are like a product of your oppression, and your oppression is a product of the people that your oppressor are. So you're not really truly free of that, and you're not truly free of that until you completely let go of that. So
interesting. Harsh though.
I
Is
mean,
she white?
yeah. I don't know. I think that's like from a personal perspective in life pretty true. Often like you'll kind of if you spend too much of your life trying like, if someone's like, oh, you're like a failure, and you spend your whole life trying to prove them wrong, or someone says you're bad at something and you get really caught up on it, and you do that, like at the end of the day you've still spent all those years just basing your life around other people's opinions. And so it's like, would you have done that if they hadn't? Like, it's like, what is the authentic thing to do? And then I guess if it changes a lot as you expand that to a group wide. And that's where I feel like it does get confused, because she wants to move away from egoism
about people who can't do that? Like, I don't know, if you're looking at Indigenous people, say, like a lot of possibly like the lives and like the society they're living in has been like forced upon them. So it's not like they can suddenly be like, oh, I'm going to self-determine not in relation to the colonizer who have completely come in and this is my whole life now. Like they can't really do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely agree. And I think there's a lot more problems as you expand to a group. Especially given that the reality, I guess in that example, the idea would be more like you'd be more like it's just more, I guess they'd still have to form their identity, try and form their identity independent of that as possible, which obviously easier said than done.
A question, I don't know if you guys want to go with this, but like a question for the argument of the text, we could say something like you guys are saying about, can we, what was it, like self, like if we, something about like the let go of self-interest is like, does that result in assimilation? Like, is that the only alternative?
Oh yeah, perfect. That's actually really similar. I thought of something really early and I forgot about it, but I think it was something really similar to that.
Okay.
Along like
I'm
but yeah, what you were saying then
assimilation.
is really good, and so I think definitely develop that.
Yeah. How would you say that?
If we abolish self-interest, is the only solution assimilation? Possibly.
That sounds good.
I'd be interested if they answer that question.
Yeah.
They probably won't though. They always do Oprah's book club or whatever.
I know, it's their favorite.
Every week.
So frustrating.
Not that I listen to the entire podcast every week, but
Yeah.
from what I've listened to, there's always a question from Oprah's book club or something.
Looks good. I'm happy with it. Do we need to discuss further?
Discuss further for a couple
I
of
don't know. It's a bit bittersweet, isn't this our last one as well?
Yeah.
It is. And Maddie's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, It's actually, I don't think I've ever like properly been to every single shoot group, or I don't think I went to everyone this time, but I think this is the most I've ever been to. So it's kind of like, it's the end of an era.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Jess, you're practicing.
Do you guys
You go,
sorry.
Brian.
Do you guys graduate this semester or got a few years left or?
I'm graduating in a couple weeks, yeah.
Oh, lucky.
So jealous.
Thank you. Yeah, no, with this group, like what Martin was saying, how a couple groups just fell apart, but this group's been pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have. It's good on us.
Poles pals forever.
I know, I do feel really bad for groups that fall apart and then there's just like two people have to do it.
Yeah.
That would be horrible.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. I always wonder because I hear so many people say like, "Oh, I had a group assignment," and no, I've never actually spoken to the group member, and they just don't reply to me. Like,
Yes.
what happens to those people? Do they leave? Is it because they drop the course, or
No,
like how many people just don't? It's like whenever you get like the grade spread, and there'll always be like a few people that literally just get a mark of 0, and it's like there's someone enrolled in this course who's literally just not doing the assessment.
Yeah.
Well, Martin did say that Wendy Brown was going to be on the exam.
I know.
Unofficially.
He's like,
So
I'd highly
I'm gonna
encourage you
definitely
guys to read it. Yeah, same.
What's the exam format? Is it just
Yeah,
like
that's what I was wondering.
Another essay? I think it's like 4 different things we have to compare thinkers.
Oh, we get like 4 days to do it. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have quite a while.
It's like, what would rules say about this schlop?
Yeah.
What would this person say about that?
Oh, that's cool. So it's
And
pretty
is it-
similar to
is it
the.
for
Wait, who are you
the-
guys doing?
Don't quote me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know if you get to choose? Is it like you'll have like 10 options and you get to choose 5 or anything?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I
Ooh,
don't think
so we
so
actually
either.
have to like learn more of the content material. How this is gonna sound pretty dumb, but how useful are the lectures, by the way? Like I wanted to study and
They're
just
pretty-
hypothetically say I
Oh.
hadn't watched any semester. Would it be worth going back and watching them, or would it be better to just spend time specifically just going back over the readings?
I think it discusses like the thinker at a high level. So yeah,
They're different to the readings. I found that most weeks I watched the lecture before the readings, and that helped me understand the reading a lot more.
Same.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's kind of sets you up for the reading.
That's a
Like-
good idea. I
But if you've already done the
Otherwise, you're
reading,
just like completely in the dark with the reading.
Yeah, I often find that with like some of the more complex ones, that if I read like an explanation and then I go back and read it, that's always more helpful than the other,
Yeah.
because
that's a good idea.
it can be quite dense, and if you know what the overall structure is going to be, you pick up on the pieces as you go. So you're like, oh, I know that's leading to this, but when you read it just in the dark, you can go through 2 pages in, and the thing that you should have been paying attention to 2 pages ago, you didn't really take in, because like see how
Is there comprehension questions this week? I didn't see them.
There aren't any, so I'm assuming not, because they're not on Blackboard.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, true. So I don't actually. So we don't need to do the normal shoot.
No.
That's just this one.
2 questions.
That's so good.
That is such a relief.
Oh, so nice. What are you guys doing for your your final assignments? Like who you thinkers?
I forgot.
Oh, that's not good.
That's reassuring, Brian.
It's like
Schumpeter and Hayek or something.
oh really? I'm doing Schumpeter as well, but I'm doing Schumpeter and Gramsci.
I don't know who that is.
I know he was the leader of the Italian Communist Party, and he wrote these big bunch of notebooks in prison called the Prison Notebooks. But it's really interesting because so I was going to do it on their conception of this. No, that's right. I was going to do it on their beliefs and the potential for effective political participation.
Okay.
Schumpeter's, which sounds like a bit fancy, but because it's actually just me being lazy, because that's what Schumpeter talks about in the reading.
Yeah.
And Gramsci's whole thing is about
That's
how
strategic.
yeah, and Gramsci's whole thing's about how it's like he's a Marxist, but his whole thing's about how the bourgeoisie like co-opt higher culture to like manipulate the masses and stuff like that. But he still like believes in it overall. So I thought it was like
Cool.
yeah. What about you, Jess?
I'm doing a guy called Charles Mills. He's a Jamaican guy, and Morton Robinson.
Oh,
So
cool.
his whole thing is on like social contract theory, but
Oh yeah.
yeah. So I actually haven't studied that before, so I probably should know that at my end of my Pols degree. But so I'm doing that. But he does like a racial contract theory. So he basically says that the social contract is racialized, and then I'm comparing it to Morton Robinson's idea of white possession, because it's basically the same thing that they're agreeing on, but calling it different things. And then I'm going to say how she relates it to property rights, basically, I think. And I still have to make it come together somehow, but I think it's going to be more like arguing that she uses the racial contract theory to kind of explain how property rights work in Australia.
Yeah. So
in terms of like land, native title, and also Indigenous people as property as well. Like she talks about that. So it's only 2,000 words. I thought it was 3,000.
Oh, really?
It's not much.
I thought it was 3,000, and then I today looked and I was like, oh, Okay, so you really need to narrow it down.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that they just want us to focus on the
Hmm.
primary readings as well, because
Yeah.
I'd way rather have like a very small number of readings and really like have to dive into those and go
Yeah.
broad. I always
Yeah.
find it frustrating when they expect you to use like 5 sources.
Yeah, because I've done hardly any secondary sources, but it's 20% based on secondary, 50%. Is it 50% primary? No. Yeah,
Wow.
50% primary, 20% secondary, and 20 something else percent for structure.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
What about you, Alex?
Yeah,
I'm
what are you
doing
doing?
Sklar and Rousseau, which is pretty basic.
Oh, very cool.
But yeah,
Is,
not really started.
Isn't Rousseau the one that started social contract theory, or am I?
Yeah, yeah.
He was one of the first. I think Hobbes, Rousseau, and Kant. Maybe Kant. Yeah, they kind of were the first like founding fathers of the contract theory, and like that's what Mills's argument kind of revolves around. How they're all like white guys, so they kind of wrote it in their benefit.
Yeah. Like it's like how Kant has like, oh, you have to be rational, and then he's like, but black people don't count.
What are you saying with yours, Alex?
I'm saying that like Judith Sklar is inspired or sort of based off Rousseau, but
yeah, cool.
I really haven't started much.
Because he was really sexist, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't he say that women were like dogs or something?
Probably.
I'm
not surprised.
And this friend.
Seriously.
Probably not with those connotations, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I've got 2 assignments due on that same day, so it's not going to be fun.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's all sneaking up.
It is.
So do you know what you wanna do after uni?
Not really. I've got an application in with the Queensland Police. I don't really know if that's going to go anywhere, but keep my options wide. And an old friend of mine is in the Air Force as an intelligence officer, and he said he'd get me an interview if I wanted. So
sweet.
I'm lucky. I'm lucky with that. If none of that works out, tax consulting or something, I
don't know. So yeah, that's a pretty big change between military intelligence versus tax consulting.
I like the fallback.
Yeah.
We're going to need tax consultants.
Yeah. What are you guys?
What are you thinking, Jess?
I should have more of an idea. I don't know. Anyone have any ideas?
For you?
Yeah, for me?
What do you like?
My friend started working non-for-profit doing it's like an environmental non-for-profit, but he's starting to look at advocacy, and I thought that because he did polls as well, just political science, and I thought like non-for-profits in general, so like but like things like advocacy and like organizing that thing. I thought that was pretty interesting because it's like a interesting intersection between like marketing, but also like more broader and more the political stuff. And that's something I never thought about. So that's why I'm saying it now, because I thought,
yeah.
And then there's also always government is kind of, I feel like the natural thing most polls. Like and same as in PPE as well. My degree as well is fully definitely geared towards pushing you towards government. So
like policy advising type work.
Yeah, and just general streams as well. So there's like policy development, but then there's also like program implementation and things like that. Like like another friend of mine went into the Victorian graduate program, and she's really enjoying it. So I think she's doing she works in like she's doing like working in like one of the diversity programs. And she really likes that work. So,
yeah, because my minor is in gender studies, so it's very much in that field. I've been looking at a couple like not-for-profits in terms of like gender sexuality type advocacy. Don't know if that's what I want to do though. That's why I'm going to try and do some volunteering and figure it out. I think that's my next
This
step.
is a bit different, but I volunteer at a place called Women's Legal Service, and they
Really?
yeah, I could give you some of the people who I work
Yeah,
with.
that'd be awesome.
Their main job is like preventing domestic violence against women and children.
Mm-hmm.
I just go in there
Cool.
once a week and do whatever's needed.
What do you do?
It's so different. It's like so different. Like sometimes we're applying for grants and like government funding online, which is a lot of work. But we've got quite a few, especially during COVID. Other times, like we get donations of clothes, and you've got to go through that. Like it's all so random. And like a bit of marketing is mixed in to those sort of non-for-profit
That's awesome.
organizations.
Yeah, because I've been looking at legal side as well.
Yeah.
So,
Such a good organization. Yeah. Otherwise, what about like Indigenous Australian, I don't know, different organizations too?
I have
You seem
thought
to be,
about that because I mean,
but more towards.
yeah, that's what a lot of people say. I do have a lot of interest in that, but I'm also like, I don't know, I'm white and I'd feel a bit weird about it.
I think if you're working like on behalf of that cause, then it's definitely as long as you're not like telling people how to live their life and taking their land, on the better side.
I think something that incorporates.
I know there's that Indigenous women's shelter in. No, I've just lost it. Sorry, I just dropped out for a few seconds there.
Yeah, so exciting times.
You've got heaps of options. Do you have like a part-time job at the moment, or?
At the moment, I'm just kind of doing like school drop-offs and pickups for a couple kids. So it's, like,
Cool.
it's made me realize I don't want to do primary school teaching, so that's been helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, they're good. One-on-one, it's okay. When I drop them into school, though, I'm like, oh my god, it's creeping.
Gosh.
Well,
Cool.
it's end of an era, but I'll
That's
see
when
you.
the lights are off.
I know, it's so dark now.
It got dark really quickly in like the last 30 minutes.
It looks so mysterious.
Yeah.
Okay, friends.
All right. Well, thanks for everything, guys. So hopefully I'll catch you around, and good luck with your